In a world that hums with the relentless buzz of notifications, deadlines, and demands, there's a man named Daniel standing at the edge of a city park at dusk. He's not here for a jog or a casual stroll. His shoulders are hunched, his phone clutched tightly in his hand, the screen glowing with an unanswered email from his boss. The weight of the day meetings that dragged a colleague's sharp words, a missed call from his daughter, presses against his chest like a stone. He's come to this park, this patch of green amidst concrete, to find a moment of quiet. But even here, the distant honk of traffic and the chatter of passers-by seem to mock his search for peace. Daniel is not alone in this. How many of us, in our own way, stand at the edge of our lives yearning for a stillness that feels just out of reach? The air is cool, and as Daniel sits on a weathered bench, he notices an older woman nearby feeding pigeons with deliberate care. She scatters crumbs, her movements slow and unhurried, as if time itself has bent to her rhythm. The pigeons flutter around her, their soft coos blending with the rustle of leaves. She doesn't seem to notice the world's rush, the urgency that grips Daniel. There's something about her calm that unsettles him, not because it's foreign, but because it stirs a memory of what he's lost, a sense of being anchored, of being whole. This moment, this fleeting scene, is where we begin. It's a snapshot of a world where noise drowns out meaning, where disconnection creeps into our hearts, and where conflict within ourselves and with others feels like the only constant. Yet it's also a world where wisdom, ancient and alive, waits to guide us back to peace. The teachings of Christ, echoed and illuminated by Pope Francis, offer not just solace, but a practical path forward. They speak to Daniel's exhaustion, to the woman's quiet grace, to the struggles we all carry in our modern lives. Let's walk this path together, starting with a truth that cuts through the chaos, the call to love, even in the midst of strife. The teaching: love your enemies. Christ's words in the Gospel of Matthew are startling in their simplicity and their challenge. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Matthew 5:43-44. These aren't words meant for a distant time or a cloistered life. They're for now, for the co-worker who undermines you, the stranger who cuts you off in traffic, the family member whose words sting. They're for Daniel, replaying his colleague's criticism in his mind, each memory sharpening his resentment. Pope Francis, in his encyclical, Fratelli Tutti, builds on this, urging us to see every person as a brother or sister, even those who wound us. He writes, "We need to acknowledge that we are constantly tempted to ignore others, especially the weak. Yet love, which breaks down barriers, enables us to build bridges." 62. This isn't a call to ignore pain or excuse harm. It's an invitation to transform conflict by choosing love over hatred, connection over division. In a world where social media amplifies outrage and workplaces breed competition, this teaching feels radical, almost impossible. But it's exactly what Daniel needs, what we all need, to find peace in a fractured world. Let's return to Daniel sitting on that park bench, his mind a storm of frustration. The colleague who snapped at him in the meeting mark with his smug tone and quick dismissals has become the face of his anger. Daniel could fire off a sharp email venting his hurt, or let the grudge simmer, poisoning his days. But what if there's another way? What if Christ's call to love and Pope Francis's vision of fraternity could shift this moment from conflict to something new, applying the teaching? A path through conflict. Imagine Daniel taking a deep breath, closing his eyes, and letting Christ's words sink in. Love your enemy. It doesn't mean pretending Mark's words didn't hurt. It means refusing to let that hurt define their relationship. Daniel could start small with a prayer, not a grand gesture, but a quiet plea for understanding, for Mark's struggles for his own heart to soften. Pope Francis reminds us that prayer is a bridge, a way to see the other as human, flawed, and worthy of dignity. The next day, Daniel tries something bold. Instead of avoiding Mark, he approaches him during a coffee break. "Hey, yesterday got heated," he says, his voice steady but not accusing. "I think we both want this project to succeed. Can we talk it through?" Mark, caught off guard, nods, and they sit down. It's not a perfect conversation. There's awkwardness, defensiveness, but it's a start. Daniel listens not just to respond, but to understand. He learns Mark's been under pressure from his own boss, that his sharp words weren't personal. By the end, they're not friends, but they're not enemies either. There's a fragile bridge between them built on a choice to love. This is the heart of the teaching: love as an action, not a feeling. It's choosing to see the other's humanity, even when it's hard. Pope Francis emphasizes that this kind of love is practical, rooted in small gestures, listening, forgiving, offering a kind word. It's not about erasing conflict, but transforming it. In Daniel's case, it's a conversation that shifts the air, making space for collaboration instead of resentment. Practical steps. Living. Love in everyday life. How do we, like Daniel, live this teaching in our own lives? Here are steps to make it real, grounded in the messiness of daily struggles. Pause and pray. When anger or hurt flares, take a moment to breathe. Offer a silent prayer for the person who's upset you. It could be as simple as, "God, help me see them as you do." This isn't about suppressing your feelings, but redirecting them toward understanding. Seek to understand. Before responding in conflict, ask yourself, what's driving this person? Are they stressed, afraid, or hurting? Pope Francis encourages us to approach, express, listen, look at, know, understand, and find common ground. FT 198. A question like, "Can you tell me more about what's going on?" can open doors. Act with kindness. Choose one small gesture to break the cycle of negativity. It might be a smile, a compliment, or an offer to help. These acts, though small, are seeds of peace. Christ's love was shown in actions: washing feet, breaking bread, and ours can be too. Reflect and release. At the end of the day, reflect on your interactions. Did you hold on to a grudge? Did you build a bridge? Journaling or quiet reflection can help you release resentment and recommit to love. Pope Francis reminds us that forgiveness is a process, one we practice daily. These steps aren't a formula for instant harmony. They're a discipline, a way of training our hearts to choose love over hate. For Daniel, it started with a prayer and a conversation. For you, it might be a kind word to a difficult neighbor or patience with a demanding boss. Each choice is a step toward peace, not just in your heart, but in the world around you. A story of transformation. Let's linger with Daniel a bit longer, because his story shows how this teaching ripples outward. A week after his conversation with Mark, Daniel notices a change. The office feels less tense, not because everyone's suddenly best friends, but because he's carrying himself differently. He's less quick to take offense, more willing to listen. His daughter, noticing his calmer demeanor, opens up about her own struggles at school. They talk late into the evening, and Daniel feels a connection he'd feared was slipping away. One evening, Daniel returns to the park. The older woman is there again, feeding her pigeons. This time, he strikes up a conversation. Her name is Maria, and she's a retired nurse who spent years caring for others. The pigeons, she says with a smile, remind me to slow down to care for what's small and overlooked. Daniel shares a bit of his own journey, how he's trying to let go of anger and build bridges. Maria nods, her eyes warm. That's the work of a lifetime, she says. But it's worth it. Maria's words echo Christ's teaching and Pope Francis's call to fraternity. They remind Daniel and us that peace isn't a destination, but a daily practice. It's in the small moments, listening to a colleague, forgiving a slight, caring for the overlooked, that we build a world where love triumphs over strife. The ripple effect. Daniel's story is one of countless stories unfolding every day. There's Sarah, a single mother who prays for patience with her rebellious teenager, finding ways to listen instead of lecture. There's Jamal, a teacher who chooses kindness toward a disruptive student, discovering the boy's struggles at home. There's you facing your own conflicts, your own moments of disconnection with the chance to choose love. Pope Francis writes, "Every act of love, however small, radiates and transforms the world." FT 194. This is the promise of Christ's teaching, that our choices rooted in love have power beyond what we see. They heal relationships, soften hearts, and create spaces where peace can grow. In a world of stress and division, this is our calling, not to escape the noise, but to bring light into it. An uplifting call. As we close this first part of our journey, picture Daniel standing in that park, the sky deepening to twilight. He's not free of stress or conflict, but he's found a new strength, a way to face them without being consumed. The teachings of Christ and the wisdom of Pope Francis have given him a compass, guiding him toward love, even in the hardest moments. And in that choice, he's found a peace that doesn't depend on the world's quiet, but on his own heart's resolve. You too are invited to this path. The struggles you face, whether a tense workplace, a strained relationship, or the weight of your own doubts, are not the end of the story. They're the canvas where love can paint something new. Take that first step today. Pause. Pray, listen, act. Let love be your response to strife, and watch how it transforms not just your life, but the lives around you. As Daniel walks home, the city's noise feels less oppressive. He notices the laughter of children playing, the warmth of a streetlight, the simple beauty of a world still turning toward peace. And in his heart, he carries a quiet hope, a whisper of Christ's promise. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. The city hums around Daniel as he walks home from the park, his steps lighter than they were an hour ago. The encounter with Maria, her quiet wisdom about caring for the small and overlooked, lingers in his mind. The streetlights cast soft pools of gold on the pavement, and for a moment the world feels gentler, as if it's conspiring to show him something new. But life, as it often does, has a way of testing resolve. As Daniel turns the corner toward his apartment, his phone buzzes with a text from his sister Rachel. "Can we talk? It's about Mom." The words hit like a cold wind. His mother's health has been frail, and Rachel's messages about her care have grown tense, edged with unspoken blame. Daniel's newfound peace feels fragile now, a candle flickering in a storm. This is where we find ourselves on the edge of hope, only to be pulled back into the messiness of relationships, responsibilities, and the weight of family. Daniel's story, like ours, doesn't pause for neat resolutions. It flows into the next challenge, where the teachings of Christ and the insights of Pope Francis meet us not in abstract ideals, but in the raw human moments of daily life. Today we explore a truth that speaks to Daniel's tension with Rachel, to the stress that knots our shoulders, and to the longing for connection in a world that often feels fragmented, the call to be present, to abide in God's love, and to let that love shape how we care for others. The teaching "Abide in my love." In the Gospel of John, Jesus speaks words that are both tender and profound. "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love." John 15:9-10. To abide is to dwell, to rest, to make a home in something. Jesus invites us to make our home in his love, to let it be the source of our strength and the lens through which we see the world. This isn't a passive state, but an active choice, a way of living that roots us in God's presence, even when life feels overwhelming. Pope Francis, in his apostolic exhortation, Gaudete et Exsultate, echoes this call, urging us to find holiness in the ordinary moments of life. He writes, "We are all called to be holy by living our lives with love and by bearing witness in everything we do, wherever we find ourselves." 14. For Pope Francis, abiding in God's love means bringing that love into our daily tasks, our work, our conversations, our struggles. It's about being fully present, not just to God, but to the people around us, especially when stress or conflict tempts us to withdraw. For Daniel, standing in his apartment hallway, Rachel's text is a summons to this kind of presence. His instinct is to delay, to let the message sit unanswered while he sorts through his own exhaustion. He and Rachel have clashed before over their mother's care. Rachel feels Daniel isn't doing enough, while Daniel feels stretched thin between work and family. The tension has built a wall between them, each conversation a minefield of guilt and frustration. But Jesus' words, "Abide in my love," and Pope Francis's call to live love in the ordinary offer Daniel a different path. What if he could be present to Rachel, not just as a brother defending his choices, but as someone rooted in love, listening with an open heart? A moment of choice. Daniel sets his phone down on the kitchen counter and takes a moment to breathe. The apartment is quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a neighbor's TV. He thinks of Maria in the park, her deliberate care for the pigeons, her ability to be fully present in a small act. He wonders what it would mean to bring that presence to his conversation with Rachel. Not to fix everything, not to win an argument, but to simply be there, to abide in love as Christ invites. He picks up the phone and calls Rachel. Her voice is tight, weary. "Mom's doctor called today," she says. "Her heart condition's getting worse and we need to decide about a new treatment." "I can't do this alone, Daniel." There's an edge to her words, a hint of accusation. Daniel feels the familiar urge to defend himself. He's been working overtime. He's visited Mom when he can, but he pauses. "Abide in my love." Instead of arguing, he says, "I'm here, Rachel. Tell me what the doctor said. Let's figure this out together." The conversation isn't easy. Rachel unloads her stress. her fear about their mother's health, her frustration that Daniel seems distant. Daniel listens, resisting the urge to interrupt. He hears the pain beneath her words, the weight she's been carrying. Slowly, the talk shifts. They discuss the treatment options, make a plan to visit the doctor together. By the end, Rachel's voice softens. "Thanks for listening," she says. "I didn't think you would." Daniel feels a warmth in his chest, not because the problem is solved, but because they've connected, even if just for a moment. He's abided in love, and it's made a difference. Applying the teaching presence in a distracted world. Daniel's choice to be present with Rachel reflects a truth we all face in a world of distractions. Presence is a radical act. Our phones, our schedules, our worries pull us away from the people in front of us. Stress makes us retreat into ourselves, building walls where bridges could stand. Yet Christ's call to abide in His love is an invitation to stay connected, to be fully here even when it's hard, Pope Francis emphasizes that this presence starts with small intentional acts. In Gaudete et Exsultate, he writes, "Very often it is a holiness found in our next-door neighbors, those who living in our midst reflect God's presence." GE 7. To abide in God's love is to see the divine in the ordinary, in a sister's plea, a co-worker's struggle, a stranger's glance. It's to choose connection over disconnection, love over indifference. For Daniel, presence meant listening to Rachel without defensiveness. For us, it might mean putting down the phone to talk to a child or giving a friend our full attention instead of multitasking. It's about showing up, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually in the moments that matter. Practical steps. Cultivating presence. How do we live this teaching in our own lives amidst the demands of work, family, and the constant pull of technology? Here are practical ways to abide in God's love and bring that presence to others. Start with silence. Begin each day with a moment of quiet prayer or reflection. It could be 5 minutes sitting with Jesus' words, "Abide in my love." Ask God to help you stay rooted in that love throughout the day. This practice grounds you, creating space for presence. Limit distractions. Set boundaries with technology. Try turning off notifications during meals or conversations. Create phone-free hours to focus on the people around you. Pope Francis reminds us that we need to take time to recover our true selves. GE 29, and reducing distractions helps us do that. Practice active listening. When someone speaks to you, give them your full attention. Put aside your own thoughts and resist planning your response. Ask questions to show you care. How did that make you feel? Or, what do you need right now? This mirrors Christ's attentive love for those He met. Do one thing at a time. Multitasking often dilutes our presence. Whether you're working, cooking, or talking, focus on the task at hand. Offer it as a small act of love, a way of abiding in God's presence. Pope Francis calls this the holiness of daily life. 31. Reflect on your day. At night. Take a moment to review your interactions. Were you present, or did you let stress or distraction take over? Thank God for the moments you showed up and ask for grace to do better tomorrow. These steps are simple, but not easy. They require intention, especially in a culture that glorifies busyness. But each act of presence is a way of living Christ's commandment of making a home in His love and sharing that love with others. A wider ripple. Daniel's conversation with Rachel doesn't end their tension, but it plants a seed. Over the next few days, they text more often, sharing updates about their mother's treatment. Daniel notices Rachel's tone is less sharp, and he feels less defensive. One evening, he visits his mother in the hospital, bringing a small bouquet of flowers. Rachel is there, and they sit together watching their mother sleep. There's no need for words. Their presence is enough. In that quiet room, Daniel feels a connection not just to his family, but to something deeper, a love that holds them all. This moment ripples outward. At work, Daniel starts practicing presence with his team. He listens more in meetings, notices when a colleague seems stressed and offers a kind word. His daughter, seeing him more engaged at home, shares more about her life. Even Maria, the woman in the park, becomes a regular part of his walks, their conversations a reminder to stay grounded in the small things. Pope Francis writes, "A community that cherishes the little details of love becomes a place where the risen Lord is present." GE 145. Daniel's small acts of presence are building that community one interaction at a time. They're a testament to Christ's promise that abiding in His love transforms not just us, but the world around us. Stories of presence. Daniel's journey is one of many. There's Elena, a nurse who, despite long shifts, takes a moment to hold a patient's hand, offering comfort in silence. There's Michael, a student who puts away his phone to listen to his roommate's struggles, helping him feel seen. There's you, with your own opportunities to be present to a partner, a friend, a stranger in need. Each act of presence is a thread in a larger tapestry weaving a world where love is the foundation. Consider Sarah, the single mother from our first story. She's been practicing presence with her teenage son Liam, who's been pulling away, spending hours in his room. Instead of nagging, Sarah tries a new approach. One evening, she knocks on his door and asks if he wants to watch a movie. To her surprise, he agrees. They sit on the couch, sharing popcorn, and though Liam doesn't say much, Sarah feels a shift. Over the next week, he starts joining her for dinner, sharing bits of his day. Sarah's presence, her choice to abide in love, is slowly rebuilding their bond. Or think of Jamal, the teacher, who chose kindness toward his disruptive student Malik. By being present, asking Malik about his life, listening to his fears. Jamal learns the boy's father is out of work and the family is struggling. Jamal connects them with a community program, and Malik's behavior improves. Jamal's presence didn't just change a classroom, it changed a life. The power of small acts. These stories show that abiding in God's love isn't about grand gestures. It's about the small, faithful choices we make every day. Pope Francis reminds us that the Lord works in the concrete and particular. GE 144. A smile, a listening ear, a moment of undivided attention. These are the building blocks of peace. They're how we live Christ's commandment in a world that often feels too big, too broken to change. For Daniel, presence is becoming a habit. He still feels stress work, deadlines haven't vanished, and his mother's health is still uncertain, but he's learning to carry it differently. He starts each morning with a brief prayer, asking to be rooted in God's love. He limits his phone use at home, giving his daughter his full attention. When he sees Maria in the park, he stops to chat, learning more about her life as a nurse, her faith that sustained her through hard times. Each choice makes him more aware of the love that surrounds him, the love he's called to share. An uplifting vision. As Daniel's story unfolds, we see the power of abiding in Christ's love. It's a love that doesn't erase life's challenges, but gives us the strength to face them. It's a love that makes us present not just to God, but to the people in our lives, from family to strangers. And it's a love that transforms, turning moments of tension into opportunities for connection, moments of stress into invitations to trust. Picture Daniel now standing in his mother's hospital room, Rachel at his side. The beeping of monitors, the sterile smell of antiseptic, the uncertainty of the future. They're all still there. But so is love. It's in the way Daniel holds his mother's hand, the way Rachel's eyes soften as they share a quiet glance. It's in the prayer Daniel whispers in his heart. Lord, let me abide in your love, and let that love flow through me. This is your invitation too. In the rush of your days, in the tangle of your relationships, choose to abide in God's love. Be present. Listen. Care. Let each small act be a reflection of Christ's love, a step toward peace in your heart and in the world. As Pope Francis says, this is the path of holiness, and it is a path of joy. Walk it today, and watch how love makes all things new. Daniel's shoes echo softly on the hospital's linoleum floor as he leaves his mother's room, Rachel trailing a step behind. The weight of their shared silence feels different now, not heavy with tension, but warm, like a blanket draped over shared grief and hope. Outside, the city is waking to a new day, its skyline sharp against a dawn sky streaked with pink. Daniel's mind is still with his mother, her frail hand in his, but it's also with Rachel, with the fragile bridge they're rebuilding. He feels a quiet strength, a sense that the love he's been practicing through listening through presence is taking root. But as he steps into the morning air, his phone vibrates with a news alert. A local protest has turned violent streets. He walks daily now choked with anger and smoke. The world's brokenness, which felt distant in the hospital's sterile calm, crashes back into focus. This is the rhythm of life, moments of connection pierced by the chaos of a world that seems to unravel faster than we can mend it. Daniel's journey, like ours, doesn't unfold in a vacuum. It's shaped by the larger currents of society division, fear, injustice. The teachings of Christ and the wisdom of Pope Francis don't shy away from this reality. They meet us here in the tension between personal peace and collective strife, offering a way to heal not just our hearts, but the world around us. Today, we turn to a teaching that speaks to Daniel's encounter with a fractured city, to the outrage that simmers in our own hearts, and to the call to be builders of justice and mercy in a world desperate for both. The teaching, "Blessed are the merciful." In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus declares, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy." Matthew 5:7. Mercy in Christ's vision is not weakness or sentimentality. It's a fierce, active love that seeks to heal, to forgive, and to restore. It's a refusal to let anger or despair have the final word, even when the world seems to demand it. Jesus lived this mercy in his encounters, forgiving the woman caught in adultery, dining with tax collectors, praying for his executioners. His mercy was a bridge between brokenness and hope, a way of seeing every person as worthy of love, no matter their failings. Pope Francis, in his apostolic letter, Misericordia et Misera, expands this vision, calling mercy the very foundation of the Church's life, MM10. He urges us to practice mercy not just in personal relationships, but in the face of societal wounds, poverty, injustice, division. Mercy, he writes, is the concrete action of love that by forgiving transforms and changes lives, MM2. In a world where protests flare and social media amplifies every grievance, this call to mercy is both a challenge and a lifeline. It asks us to look beyond the surface of conflict, to see the humanity in those who anger us, and to act with compassion even when it feels counterintuitive. Daniel, standing on the hospital steps, feels the weight of this challenge. The news alert about the protest stirs a mix of emotions: fear for his city, frustration at the cycle of violence, and a nagging sense of helplessness. He thinks of the protesters, the police, the bystanders caught in the chaos. It's easy to pick a side, to let anger or cynicism take over. But Christ's words, "Blessed are the merciful," and Pope Francis's call to active love pull him toward a different response. What would it mean to bring mercy to this moment, not as an abstract ideal, but as a concrete act, a city in turmoil? Daniel decides to walk home, avoiding the protest's epicenter, but passing through streets alive with tension. Shop windows are boarded up and clusters of people huddle, scrolling through their phones for updates. He overhears snippets of conversation: anger at systemic inequality, fear of escalating violence, despair that nothing will change. At a corner store, he stops for coffee and sees a young man, Amir, arguing with the cashier. Amir's voice is loud, his gestures sharp, accusing the cashier of overcharging him. The cashier, an older woman, looks exhausted. Her response is clipped. The air crackles with their mutual frustration. Daniel could walk away. This isn't his fight. But something in him stirs a memory of Maria's care for the overlooked, of Rachel's softened voice after he listened. "Blessed are the merciful." He steps closer, not sure what he'll say, but feeling the call to act. "Hey, can I help?" he asks, his tone calm but firm. Amir turns, ready to snap, but Daniel's steady gaze seems to pause him. "I just saw you both seem stressed. Maybe we can sort this out." The cashier explains that the store's prices rose due to supply issues, a fact Amir hadn't heard. Amir, still bristling, admits he's been out of work, his savings drained. The argument wasn't just about $1, it was about survival. Daniel listens, nodding, then offers to cover Amir's coffee. It's a small gesture, but it shifts the moment. The cashier softens, offering Amir a free pastry. Amir, though still tense, mumbles a thank you. As Daniel leaves, he feels no grand triumph, but a quiet sense that mercy, even in a fleeting encounter, can change the temperature of a room. Applying the teaching mercy in a divided world. Daniel's act at the corner store is a microcosm of what Christ and Pope Francis call us to mercy as a bridge across division. In a world where every issue feels like a battle, politics, race, economics, mercy asks us to see the person behind the conflict. Amir wasn't just an angry customer. He was a man carrying the weight of joblessness. The cashier wasn't just defensive. She was worn down by long hours and rising costs. Mercy doesn't erase their struggles, but it creates space for understanding, for connection, for hope. Pope Francis emphasizes that mercy is practical, rooted in works of mercy that address both physical and spiritual needs, MM 18. These works, feeding the hungry, comforting the sorrowful, forgiving offenses, are not reserved for saints or grand moments. They're for now, for the street corner, the workplace, the family dinner table. For Daniel, mercy meant stepping into a tense moment with kindness. For us, it might mean volunteering at a shelter, mediating a family dispute, or simply listening to someone whose views we don't share. This teaching is especially urgent in a world polarized by anger. Social media amplifies every slight, turning neighbors into enemies. Protests, like the one in Daniel's city, often begin with legitimate grievances, but spiral into destruction when mercy is absent. Christ's call to be merciful doesn't mean ignoring injustice. Jesus himself challenged corruption and hypocrisy, but it means responding with love, not hatred, seeking restoration over revenge. Practical steps. Living mercy every day. How do we embody mercy in a world that often feels merciless? Here are steps to make this teaching real, grounded in the challenges of modern life. See the story behind the anger. When someone lashes out a coworker, a stranger, a family member, pause and consider what might be driving them. Are they hurting, stressed, or afraid? Pope Francis urges us to enter into the reality of other people's lives, M14. A question like, "Are you okay?" can open a door to understanding. Practice small acts of kindness. Mercy doesn't require grand gestures. Pay for someone's coffee. Hold a door. Offer a smile to a stressed cashier. These acts, as Pope Francis notes, make God's love present, MM16. They're seeds of peace in a tense world. Forgive one offense. Choose one grudge or hurt you're holding on to and let it go. It might mean forgiving a friend's careless words or a colleague's slight. Write a letter, you don't have to send it, or pray for the person. Forgiveness, as Christ shows, is mercy's first step. Engage with the wider world. Mercy extends beyond personal encounters. Volunteer at a food bank, donate to a cause addressing injustice, or join a community dialogue about local issues. Pope Francis calls this social mercy a way of healing systemic wounds at MM20. Reflect on your impact. At day's end, ask yourself, did I show mercy today? Did I judge too quickly or act with compassion? Journaling or prayer can help you grow in this practice, aligning your heart with Christ's. These steps are not a cure-all for the world's problems, but they're a start. They train us to see with merciful eyes, to act with merciful hands, to build a world where love outshines anger. A ripple in the city. Daniel's encounter at the corner store is a small spark, but it doesn't end there. The next day, he sees Amir again, this time at a community meeting about the protests. Amir recognizes him and nods a silent acknowledgement. The meeting is tense, with residents voicing fears about violence and demands for change. Daniel, usually quiet in such settings, feels compelled to speak. He shares his experience at the store, how a moment of listening de-escalated a conflict. We're all carrying something, he says. Maybe if we start with small acts of understanding, we can find a way forward. His words resonate with a few attendees, including a local pastor who invites Daniel to join a group organizing peace walks. These walks aren't protests, but gatherings where people share stories, pray, and commit to rebuilding trust. Daniel hesitates. He's no activist, but remembers Pope Francis's words. Mercy is the force that reawakens us to new life. He joins, and over the next week he walks alongside strangers listening to their hopes and fears. One woman, a single mother named Clara, shares how the protests disrupted her son's school, leaving her terrified. Daniel listens, offering no solutions, just presence. Clara thanks him, saying, "It helps to know someone cares." These moments of listening, of showing up, are mercy in action. They don't erase the city's problems, but they create pockets of hope, spaces where people feel seen. Daniel's small acts ripple outward, touching Clara Amir and others he'll never know. Stories of Mercy. Daniel's story is one thread in a larger tapestry. Remember Elena, the nurse who held a patient's hand. She's now volunteering at a clinic for uninsured families, offering care to those the system overlooks. Her mercy, rooted in Christ's love, is changing lives one patient at a time. Or consider Michael, the student who listened to his roommate. He started a campus group where students share their struggles, fostering a community of compassion in a competitive environment. Then there's you, with your own chances to show mercy. Maybe it's forgiving a colleague who gossiped about you or helping a neighbor struggling with rent. Maybe it's joining a local effort to address homelessness or racial injustice. Each act, as Pope Francis says, makes the world less cold and more just. MM 19. Take Sarah, the mother, reconnecting with her son Liam. When she learns Liam's been bullied at school, her first instinct is anger at the other kids. But she remembers the call to mercy. Instead of confronting the bully's parents, she talks to the school counselor advocating for a program to address bullying through empathy workshops. Her mercy doesn't just protect Liam, it helps other kids too. Or Jamal, the teacher who helped Malik. He's now mentoring other at-risk students, using his classroom as a space for mercy. When a student disrupts class, he responds with questions, not punishment, uncovering struggles that need support. His mercy is building a school where every child feels valued. The power of mercy. These stories show that mercy is not passive. It's a force, as Christ and Pope Francis teach, that transforms. It turns arguments into understanding, despair into hope, division into community. In Daniel's city, the protests continue, but so do the peace walks, the community meetings, the small acts of kindness. The world isn't fixed, but it's being mended, one merciful choice at a time. Daniel feels this change in himself. He's still stressed, his mother's health work pressures, the city's unrest, but mercy has given him a new lens. He sees opportunities where he once saw obstacles. When he visits Maria in the park, he shares his experience at the community meeting. She smiles, her eyes crinkling. "You're learning what I learned as a nurse," she says. "Care for one person, and you care for the world." Maria's words echo Christ's teaching. Mercy is contagious. It starts with one act, a coffee paid for a story listened to, and spreads, touching lives we may never see. Pope Francis calls this a culture of mercy, a way of living that revives and brings goodness. MM 20. Daniel is part of that culture now, and so are you. An uplifting call. As Daniel walks home from the park, the city's noise feels less like a threat and more like a chorus of lives, each one aching for mercy. He thinks of his mother, Rachel Amir, Clara Maria, people whose stories have woven into his own. He thinks of Christ's words, "Blessed are the merciful," and feels a fire in his chest, a call to keep going. Mercy isn't easy, but it's life-giving. It's the path to peace, not just for him, but for a world that needs it. You too are called to this path. The conflicts you face, personal, societal, are not the end of the story. They're invitations to show mercy, to build bridges to heal. Start today. Listen to someone's pain. Forgive a hurt. Act with kindness. Let mercy be your response to a broken world, and watch how it transforms you and those around you. As Daniel reaches his apartment, he pauses, looking at the sky now bright with morning. The news alerts still buzz, the challenges still loom, but he carries a quiet certainty. Mercy is the way forward. It's the love that Christ lived, the love Pope Francis calls us to, the love that makes all things new. And in that love, Daniel and all of us find the strength to keep building peace, one merciful act at a time. The morning sun filters through Daniel's apartment window, casting long shadows across the kitchen table where he sits with a cooling cup of coffee. His laptop is open, but instead of work emails, he's reading about the peace walks he's joined, scrolling through a community forum where people share ideas for healing their fractured city. The protests have quieted, but the underlying tensions, inequality, mistrust, fear still simmer. Daniel feels a pull to do more, not just to react to moments of crisis, but to build something lasting. His mother's health is stable for now, and his connection with Rachel is steadier, yet he senses a new restlessness, a call to carry the love and mercy he's been practicing into a broader mission. Outside the city pulses with its usual rhythm, but for Daniel, it's a canvas of possibility, a place where small acts can weave a larger story of hope. This is where we meet Daniel now at a crossroads between personal growth and collective responsibility. His journey mirrors our own moments of clarity, disrupted by the question of what comes next. How do we take the love, presence, and mercy we've cultivated and make them a force for lasting change? The teachings of Christ and the wisdom of Pope Francis offer a guide not just for navigating personal struggles, but for transforming the world around us. Today, we explore a truth that speaks to Daniel's desire to build to the longing in our hearts for a better world and to the call to be stewards of creation and community, the invitation to bear fruit that lasts, to live with purpose and generosity in a world hungry for both. The teaching bear fruit that will last. In the Gospel of John, Jesus speaks to his disciples with a vivid image. I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who abide in me and I in them bear much fruit, because apart from me, you can do nothing. By this, my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. John 15:5-8. This is a call to action, to live in such a way that our lives produce lasting good love, justice, compassion. To bear fruit is to contribute to the flourishing of others, to leave the world better than we found it. It's a vision of discipleship that's not about personal salvation alone, but about transforming the world through our connection to Christ. Pope Francis, in his encyclical Laudato Si', extends this call to the care of our common home and the building of a just society. He writes, "We are called to be instruments of God our Father, so that our planet might be what He desired when He created it, and correspond with His plan for peace, beauty, and fullness." LS 53. For Pope Francis, bearing fruit means living with generosity, caring for the earth, and working for the common good. It's about seeing our daily choices, how we work, consume, and relate as opportunities to build a world that reflects God's love. In a society driven by individualism and short-term gain, this teaching challenges us to live with purpose, to plant seeds that will grow long after we're gone. Daniel, sitting at his kitchen table, feels this challenge. The peace walks have been meaningful, but they're fleeting. He wants to do something more, something that addresses the root causes of his city's unrest: poverty, disconnection, despair. He thinks of the people he's met Amir struggling to find work, Clara worried for her son's future, Maria, whose quiet care inspires him. Christ's call to bear fruit and Pope Francis's vision of a shared home stir a question in his heart. How can he be a branch of the vine producing fruit that lasts for them, for his city, for the world. A vision takes root. Daniel's restlessness leads him to a local community center, a worn but vibrant hub where volunteers run after-school programs, food drives, and job workshops. He's been here before dropping off donations, but today he lingers watching kids laugh in a tutoring session and adults sort canned goods. The center's director, Sophia, a woman with a warm smile and a no-nonsense demeanor, notices him. "You look like you're thinking hard," she says. Daniel shares his desire to do more to help the city heal. Sophia listens, then invites him to a planning meeting for a new initiative, a community garden and job training program aimed at addressing food insecurity and unemployment. The idea sparks something in Daniel. A garden isn't just about growing food. It's about growing community, giving people like Amir a chance to work and teaching kids like Clara's son the value of creation. It's a way to bear fruit, literally and figuratively. He joins the planning team, diving into discussions about soil funding and outreach. It's daunting. Daniel's no gardener, and the logistics are complex, but he feels alive, connected to a purpose bigger than himself. "I am the vine. You are the branches." The words echo as he sketches plans, imagining a patch of green where people can gather, heal, and grow. Over the next weeks, Daniel throws himself into the project. He recruits volunteers, including Rachel, who brings her organizational skills, and Amir, who sees the job training as a lifeline. They clear a vacant lot, hauling debris and turning soil. Maria joins too, her hands steady as she plants seeds, sharing stories of her childhood garden. The work is hard, but it's joyful. Laughter mixes with sweat as neighbors, once strangers, become partners. Clara's son, Javier, starts coming after school, learning to plant tomatoes and beaming when the first sprouts appear. Daniel watches it all, feeling the weight of Christ's promise: when we abide in Him, we bear fruit that lasts. Applying the teaching building for the common good. Daniel's work on the garden reflects the heart of Christ's teaching and Pope Francis's call. To bear fruit is to live generously, to invest in the flourishing of others. It's not about grand heroics, but about consistent, purposeful acts, planting a seed, teaching a skill, building a community. In a world obsessed with instant results, this requires patience, a willingness to trust that small efforts will grow over time. Pope Francis emphasizes that this work is communal, rooted in care for both people and the earth. In Laudato Si, he writes, "An integral ecology calls for openness to categories which transcend the language of mathematics and biology and take us to the heart of what is human." LS 11. The garden is exactly this, a human project that feeds bodies, nurtures spirits, and heals a wounded city. It's a response to the poverty that traps Amir, the fear that grips Clara, the disconnection that haunts so many. For us, bearing fruit might look different, but follows the same principle. It's starting a book club to foster connection, mentoring a young colleague, or advocating for policies that protect the vulnerable. It's choosing to shop sustainably, reduce waste, or volunteer time to a cause. Each act rooted in love is a branch of the vine producing fruit for a world in need. Practical steps. Living with purpose. How do we live this teaching in our daily lives amidst the demands of work, family, and a noisy world? Here are steps to bear fruit that lasts, grounded in the reality of modern challenges. Identify your gifts. Reflect on what you're good at: organizing, teaching, creating, and how you can use it for others. Daniel's gift was his willingness to show up and connect people. Ask yourself, what can I offer my community? A prayer like, "Lord, show me how to bear fruit," can clarify your path. Start small. Think long-term. Choose one project or cause to invest in: a community garden, a literacy program, a church outreach. It doesn't need to be big, but commit to it consistently. Pope Francis reminds us that small gestures of mutual care can transform society. LS 231. Care for creation. Make choices that honor the earth. Reduce plastic use. Support. Local farmers plant a tree. These acts, as Laudato Si teaches, are part of bearing fruit for future generations. Try a weekly green challenge like cutting energy use or composting. Build community. Connect with others to amplify your impact. Join a group like Daniel's Garden Team or start one. Share meals, ideas, or skills. Pope Francis calls community a place of encounter where God's love grows. Reflect and renew. At week's end, review your efforts. Did you plant seeds of good? Did you nurture others? Journal or pray about your impact, asking for strength to keep going. This reflection keeps you rooted in Christ the vine. These steps are a discipline, a way of aligning our lives with God's dream for the world. They're not about perfection, but persistence, trusting that our efforts like seeds will grow in God's time. A garden grows. The community garden takes shape over months, transforming the vacant lot into a patchwork of green. Raised beds brim with vegetables, and a small pavilion hosts workshops on cooking and job skills. Amir lands a part-time role coordinating deliveries, his confidence growing with each task. Javier Clara's son becomes a regular, teaching younger kids how to water plants. Rachel organizes a harvest festival, drawing neighbors for food and music. Maria, ever steady, tends a corner of herbs, her presence a quiet anchor. Daniel sees the fruit of this work not just in the crops, but in the people. Neighbors who once passed each other without a glance now share stories over seedlings. Amir's smile is brighter, his hope rekindled. Clara, less weighed by worry, joins the planning team, her voice strong. The garden isn't a cure for the city's woes. Poverty and division persist, but it's a sign of what's possible when people abide in love and work together. As Pope Francis writes, every effort to protect and improve our world entails profound changes in lifestyles, models of production and consumption, and the established structures of power. The garden is a small but profound change, a fruit that lasts. Daniel's own heart is changing too. The restlessness that drove him to the community center has settled into purpose. He still faces stress work, his mother's health, the city's challenges, but he carries it with a new resilience. Each morning he prays to be a branch of the vine, to bear fruit for others. When he visits Maria in the park, she notices the change. "You're growing," she says, her eyes twinkling. "Not just the garden, but you." Daniel laughs, but he knows she's right. The work has rooted him not just in his city, but in God's love. Stories of fruitfulness. Daniel's garden is one story among many. Recall Elena, the nurse volunteering at the clinic. She's now training others to provide care, multiplying her impact. Her work is fruit that lasts, healing bodies and spirits. Or Michael, the student with the campus group. His initiative has grown, inspiring students to mentor high schoolers, creating a ripple of guidance and hope. Then there's Sarah, the mother, reconnecting with Liam. She started a parent group at his school, fostering support for families navigating bullying. Her efforts are bearing fruit, strengthening a community around her son. And Jamal, the teacher mentoring students, has launched a scholarship fund for kids like Malik, ensuring their dreams have a chance to grow. You too have a place in this story. Maybe you're tutoring a child, advocating for fair wages, or planting a backyard garden. Maybe you're simply being a friend who listens, a presence that nurtures. Each act is a seed, a fruit of the vine contributing to a world that reflects God's love. The power of generosity. These stories show that bearing fruit is about generosity, giving time skills, love even when it's costly. In a culture that prizes self-interest, this is countercultural, a reflection of Christ's own life. He gave everything from his teachings to his sacrifice to bear fruit for humanity. Pope Francis calls us to this same generosity to go out to others and seek their good. LS 223. The garden, the clinic, the scholarship fund, these are acts of going out of building a world where everyone can flourish. Daniel feels this power in the garden's harvest festival. As neighbors share food and laughter, he sees a glimpse of God's kingdom, a place where no one is left out, where love is the currency. He thinks of Christ's words, "By this my Father is glorified." The garden glorifies God not through perfection, but through the messy, beautiful work of community. An uplifting vision. As Daniel stands in the garden watching Javier show a younger child how to pick a tomato, he feels a deep peace. The world is still broken. His mother's health, the city's struggles, his own doubts remain. But he's part of something bigger. He's a branch of the vine bearing fruit that lasts. Christ's teaching and Pope Francis's vision have shown him that every act of generosity, every seed planted, is a step toward a better world. You are called to this, too. The challenges you face, personal, societal, are not the end. They're invitations to bear fruit, to live with purpose, to build with love. Start today. Plant a seed. Teach, give, create. Let your life be a branch of the vine connected to Christ, producing fruit that glorifies God and heals the world. As the festival winds down, Daniel looks at the garden, its rows of green glowing in the dusk. Maria joins him, her hands dusted with soil. "This is what faith looks like," she says. "A little dirt, a lot of love and time." Daniel nods, his heart full. The work is far from done, but the fruit is growing, and in that growth he finds hope. A hope that carries him and all of us toward a world made new by love. The community garden is bathed in the golden light of late afternoon, its rows of vegetables and herbs swaying gently in a warm breeze. Daniel stands near the pavilion watching a group of children, including Javier Clara's son, chase each other through a makeshift maze of sunflowers. Laughter rises like music, blending with the chatter of neighbors sharing plates of grilled corn and homemade salsa at the harvest festival's closing moments. The air smells of earth and spices, a testament to months of labor and love. Amir, now a familiar face, is showing a new volunteer how to package surplus produce for the food bank. Rachel, clipboard in hand, is coordinating cleanup, her efficiency softened by a smile. Maria, as always, is tending her herb patch, her hands moving with the same deliberate care she once gave to pigeons in the park. This garden, this vibrant patch of life, is no longer just a project for Daniel. It's a home, a living symbol of the fruit he's helped bear. Yet as the festival winds down, Daniel feels a quiet ache. His mother's health has taken a turn. A recent hospital visit revealed her heart condition is worsening. Work pressures are mounting with a new project demanding late nights. And the city, though calmer still, carries scars of unrest, with news of budget cuts threatening community programs like the garden. The peace Daniel has found through love, presence, mercy, and purpose feels tested not by dramatic crises, but by the slow grind of life's uncertainties. This is where we find him, and where we find ourselves in the tension between what we've built and what we must sustain, between the joy of progress and the weight of what lies ahead. The teachings of Christ and the wisdom of Pope Francis have guided Daniel through personal and communal challenges, and they meet him here too in this moment of quiet questioning. They offer a final truth to carry forward, the call to hope, to trust in God's presence, and to live with joyful endurance in a world that tests our faith. This is the culmination of Daniel's journey and ours, a call to weave love, mercy, and purpose into a life of resilient hope, transforming not just our days, but the world we leave behind. The teaching: rejoice and be glad. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus speaks to his disciples with words that resonate through centuries. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Matthew 5:12. This is not a shallow cheerfulness, but a deep, defiant joy rooted in trust that God's love endures even in suffering. Jesus lived this joy facing rejection and the cross with a heart anchored in his Father's will. His call to rejoice is an invitation to hope, to see beyond the trials of the moment to the eternal promise of God's kingdom. Pope Francis, in his apostolic exhortation, Gaudete et exultate, amplifies this call, urging us to find joy in the ordinary and to persevere with hope. He writes, "The Christian life is joy in the Holy Spirit." Rom 14:17. For the necessary result of the love of charity is joy. This joy is a gift that enables us to face difficulties with courage. GE 122-125. For Pope Francis, hope is not passive waiting, but active trust expressed through love and service, even when the path is hard. In a world where anxiety, burnout, and despair are constant threats, this teaching is a lifeline calling us to live with a joy that sustains and a hope that transforms. Daniel, watching the garden's festival fade into dusk, feels the weight of this call. His mother's illness, the city's struggles, his own fatigue, they could easily pull him into worry or resignation. But the garden, with its laughter and life, reminds him of what he's learned. Love builds bridges, presence heals, mercy restores, and purpose bears fruit. Now Christ's call to rejoice and Pope Francis's vision of joyful hope invite him to trust that these efforts are not in vain, that God is weaving them into a larger story of redemption. A test of hope. As the last volunteers pack up, Daniel sits on a bench near Maria's herbs, the scent of basil grounding him. Rachel joins him, her face tired but content. "Mom's appointment tomorrow," she says softly. "The doctor's talking about surgery. It's risky." Daniel nods, the ache in his chest sharpening. He wants to fix it to make his mother well, but all he can do is be there. Rachel touches his arm. "You've been showing up, Daniel. It means a lot." Her words, simple but sincere, spark a flicker of hope. They've come far from their tense phone calls, and this connection, fragile as it is, feels like a gift. Later, Daniel walks home, the city's lights flickering against a deepening sky. His phone buzzes with an email from Sophia, the community center director, warning that the garden's funding is at risk. A city council vote could redirect resources threatening the job training program and the garden's expansion. Daniel's first instinct is frustration after all the work. How can this be at risk? But as he passes the park where he first met Maria, he remembers her words. A little dirt, a lot of love and time. The garden isn't just plants, it's people, relationships, hope. Rejoice and be glad. The words stir him. He can't control the council's vote or his mother's health, but he can choose hope, trusting that God is at work. The next day, Daniel attends the council meeting, joining Sophia, Amir, Clara, and others to advocate for the garden. He's nervous. Public speaking isn't his strength, but he thinks of the children's laughter, Amir's renewed confidence, Maria's steady hands. He speaks from the heart, sharing how the garden has brought neighbors together, fed families, and given hope to those like Amir. Clara follows her voice fierce as she describes how the garden has given Javier purpose. The council listens, but the vote is delayed, leaving the garden's future uncertain. Yet as Daniel leaves the meeting, he feels a surprising lightness. Speaking out, standing with others, was an act of hope, a way of rejoicing in the good already done. Applying the teaching hope in a weary world. Daniel's choice to advocate to trust despite uncertainty reflects the heart of Christ's teaching and Pope Francis's call. To rejoice and be glad is to live with hope, not as blind optimism, but as a deliberate trust in God's presence. It's a hope that sustains us through personal trials, illness, loss, stress, and empowers us to face societal challenges. Division, injustice, apathy. In a world where bad news dominates headlines and burnout threatens our spirits, this hope is revolutionary, a refusal to let despair win. Pope Francis emphasizes that this hope is communal, rooted in the joy of serving others. He writes, "The saints who have gone before us encourage us by their lives to persevere in our mission." GE 141. The garden with its web of relationships is Daniel's community of saints: Maria, Rachel, Amir, Clara. Each one a reminder that hope is stronger when shared. For us, hope might mean leaning on friends during hard times, joining a cause with others, or simply celebrating small victories in a world that feels heavy. This teaching is especially urgent today. Social media amplifies fear and global challenges. Climate change, inequality. Conflict can feel overwhelming. Yet Christ's call to rejoice invites us to see these not as endpoints, but as invitations to act with hope, to build on the love, mercy, and purpose we've already embraced. Daniel's advocacy, though uncertain in outcome, is a step in this direction, a way of saying, I trust that God is working and I will work too. Practical steps. Living with joyful hope. How do we embody this hope in our daily lives amidst uncertainty and fatigue? Here are practical steps to live Christ's call to rejoice, grounded in the realities of modern life. Cultivate gratitude. Start each day by naming 3 things you're thankful for: a kind word, a warm meal, a moment of beauty. Gratitude, as Pope Francis notes, awakens us to the presence of God. 127. Write them down or share them with someone to anchor your hope. Celebrate small wins. In the face of big challenges, honor the small victories, the conversation that went well, the task completed, the smile shared. Daniel celebrated the garden's festival even as funding loomed uncertain. These moments fuel joyful endurance. Lean on community. Surround yourself with people who inspire hope: friends, Family, a faith group. Share your struggles and dreams as Daniel did with Rachel and Sophia. Pope Francis calls community a source of joy that strengthens us. GE 143. Act with courage. Take one bold step toward a cause you care about. Write a letter. Join a rally, volunteer. Even if the outcome is uncertain, the act itself is a declaration of hope. Christ's joy was active, shown in his ministry, and ours can be too. Rest in prayer. End each day with a moment of prayer, entrusting your worries to God. A simple prayer like, "Lord, help me rejoice in your love," can renew your hope. Pope Francis reminds us that prayer opens us to the mystery of God's plan. 54. These steps are a rhythm, a way of training our hearts to rejoice even when life is hard. They're not about ignoring pain, but about trusting that God's love is bigger, that our efforts matter, that hope endures. A community of hope. The garden's future remains uncertain, but Daniel and his community don't stop. They organize a crowdfunding campaign with Rachel designing flyers and Amir reaching out to local businesses. Clara's son, Javier, creates a video about the garden's impact, his shy voice gaining strength as he talks about the plants he's grown. Maria, ever practical, suggests selling herb bundles to raise funds. The effort isn't just about money, it's about hope, a shared belief that the garden's fruit community healing purpose is worth fighting for. One evening, Daniel visits his mother in the hospital. She's weaker, but her eyes light up when he tells her about the garden. "You're doing good, Daniel," she says, her voice soft. "Keep going." Her words, like Rachel's, are a gift, a reminder that hope is sustained by love. Later, Rachel joins him, and they sit together, planning the next steps for the garden, while their mother rests. The hospital room, once a place of fear, becomes a space of hope, filled with their shared commitment to carry on. The crowdfunding campaign gains traction, drawing support from neighbors and even strangers moved by Javier's video. The council, pressured by public interest, reconsiders its budget cuts, and while the garden's funding isn't fully secured, there's progress. Daniel feels a quiet joy, not because the problems are solved, but because he's part of a community that hopes together, works together, rejoices together. As Pope Francis writes, joyful hope is the heart of a community that walks together. GE 130. The garden is that community, a living testament to Christ's promise. Stories of hope. Daniel's story is one of many, each a thread in the tapestry of hope. Elena, the nurse, continues her work at the clinic, finding joy in training new volunteers, her hope sustained by the lives she touches. Michael, the student, sees his campus group grow with students mentoring others, their shared dreams a source of resilience. Sarah, the mother, celebrates small steps with Liam, their bond stronger as they navigate his school challenges together. Jamal, the teacher, watches his scholarship fund help Malik and others, his hope fueled by their potential. You too are part of this tapestry. Maybe you're supporting a friend through grief, advocating for change in your community, or simply choosing to smile through a tough day. Each act of hope, as Pope Francis says, makes the world brighter. GE 133. Consider Clara, who, inspired by the garden, starts a parent-led tutoring program at Javier's school. Or Amir, who with newfound confidence mentors other job seekers, his hope a beacon for others. These are the fruits of joyful endurance, the reward Christ promises to those who rejoice and are glad. The power of joyful endurance. These stories show that hope is not a feeling, but a choice, a way of living that transforms. It's the choice to plant a garden, despite budget cuts, to love a family member through illness, to advocate for justice in a divided world. Christ's joy was not diminished by the cross. It shone through it a light that death could not extinguish. Pope Francis calls us to this same joy to persevere with love and hope, knowing that God is with us. GE 137. Daniel's garden, his family, his city, they're all brighter because of this choice. As Daniel walks through the garden one evening, he sees Maria tending her herbs, her face serene. He joins her, and they talk about the festival, the funding fight, his mother's surgery. Maria listens, then says, "Hope is like these plants. It needs care, but it grows strong." Her words echo Christ's teaching, a reminder that hope, like love, mercy, and purpose, is a gift we nurture and share. An uplifting vision. As the sun sets over the garden, Daniel stands among the sunflowers, their heads bowed as if in prayer. The world is still uncertain. His mother's surgery looms. The garden's future hangs in the balance. The city's wounds remain, but he carries a joy that endures. Christ's call to rejoice and Pope Francis's vision of hope have shown him that every act of love, every moment of mercy, every seed of purpose is part of God's kingdom. The garden with its laughter, its struggles, its life is a glimpse of that kingdom, a place where hope takes root and grows. You are invited to this hope too. The trials you face, personal, global, are not the end. They're invitations to rejoice, to trust, to live with joyful endurance. Start today. Be grateful. Act with courage. Lean on others. Let your life be a light, a reflection of Christ's joy, a testament to Pope Francis's call to go forth with hope. GE 177. As Daniel leaves the garden, the stars are emerging bright against the city's glow. He thinks of his mother, Rachel, Maria, Amir, Clara, Javier, the people who've shaped his journey. He thinks of Christ's words, "Rejoice and be glad." And in his heart, he feels a quiet certainty. Hope is the final word, the love that holds all things, the joy that makes all things new. With that hope, he walks into the night ready for whatever comes, knowing that God's kingdom is growing one joyful step at a time.